Joined now by Jo Jorgensen. She's running for President of the United States on all 50 ballots in all 50 states. You were on a ticket in the 90s as the vice presidential candidate. How are things different now versus then?
Well, a few things. First of all, back then we had a $5 trillion debt, and I was telling people how awful it was and how will we ever get out of it. Now it's 5 times that. And, looking back now, 5 trillion almost seems quaint. I can tell you kind of on a personal level, one of the things we were talking about in the 90s was, isn't it awful that our taxpayer dollars are going to pay for the congressional barber shop, that taxpayers are paying for the haircuts of people in Congress. Now we've gotten to the point where forget about paying for a haircut. Now we don't even get haircuts, but people in Congress do because, they've got us all under lockdown and they're making rules keeping us at home while they still get to get their haircut. So I would suggest it's even a worse case of it's than it was before.
Talk about your plans for international policy. The United States has come under criticism for trying to be the world's police force at times. What does the Libertarian Party stand when it comes to that?
My first official act as president will be to bring the troops home. My plan is to turn America into one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral. We absolutely have to keep our country safe. We absolutely have to defend our shores, and we need a strong military to do that. But we should not be in the 160 countries around the world. We should not be paying for other people's defense. And, we keep hearing how great France is, that they get to have 5-week vacations. Well, I point out maybe if we weren't paying for their military, we get 5-week vacations too. And, it'd be bad enough if it were just the money. But even worse than that, it's the safety. And sorry, I'm on a bus. We're
that's
we're
okay.
making a lot of corners here.
No problem.
So it's even worse than that because the job of the military is to keep us safe. And instead of making us more safe, they're making us less safe, as we saw with 9/11. Keeping entangled in other countries is just going to make enemies of somebody. And we need to just be neutral like Switzerland and defend our borders and defend our country.
Let's talk about healthcare. Healthcare, obviously, more important than ever right now in the middle of a global pandemic. What would the Libertarian Party do, and what are your policies on healthcare reform, and the way COVID-19 has been handled?
Well, for big topics, which I could spend quite a bit of time, but I think that healthcare is probably the most important issue in this election. It is, first of all, literally a life or death situation. And if there's one message I could get to every American voter, is that we do not have a free market system. Because what we hear the politicians say is it's the free market that we've got such high healthcare costs and therefore we need to go to single payer. But when I hear them say we need Medicare for all, what I'm hearing them say is we need VA hospital for all. And we all saw that monopolistic system did not work well for anyone. And what we need to do is introduce competition because we haven't had it. The only two fields that we have competition in at all are LASIK surgery, eye surgery, and cosmetic surgery. And in both of those fields, we've seen prices go down dramatically over the last 20 years, especially LASIK surgery. And we've seen quality go up because there is competition. Like where I live, there's billboards advertising LASIK surgery places because they're trying to get your business as opposed to somebody else. And that's the way it should be. And a good analogy would be car insurance. Imagine if your car insurance paid for gas, oil, car washes. First of all, you would have absolutely no incentive to shop around for the cheapest gas prices. In fact, you might even go to the most expensive place because what do you care? You got your little $5 copay. You might as well go to the nice place that gives you free coffee while you wait. And then they have no reason to shop on prices, or rather to compete on prices because we're not looking at prices. they would just pass the prices on to the car insurance companies, and then they would simply, without any accountability, increase premiums, and we'd just be paying higher premiums the following year. And that's exactly what's happening with healthcare. Is patients aren't shopping around, and therefore healthcare providers don't have to compete on price. And so the insurance companies just keep raising prices year after year after year because there's nothing holding prices down.
What's the government's role then in helping create that environment of competition?
The state of Indiana is doing a great job. They instituted a program in which, and here's what's interesting, is it was voluntary. You could move over to this program if you wanted to. And the first year, only a few, a handful of people did. But by the second year, something like 75% were enrolled in this program. And what they did is they had healthcare insurance be true insurance. The only time that you use your car insurance is if you get into an accident or somebody breaks in or something. Well, they do that with health insurance. And so for everyday things, then they actually put dollars into the pockets of the employees, and then they go around and they shop for the best prices. And consequently, generic drug use went from something like 10% up to 90%. And which is what you would expect, because you never spend other people's money as well as you spend your own. So of course, only 10% were using generic drugs in the beginning. And the best part is these people are happy to buy generic drugs because they get to keep the savings, and that's the way it should be. If you shop around for the best car price at different dealerships, if you shop around for the best, computer or even groceries, you get to keep the savings in your pocket. And that's what they're seeing right now, which is why generic drug use went up. And so what I would do is, and you bring up a good point. The government can't just yank the rug out from everybody and say, okay, you're on your own with, a high deductible, because the government already bloated the prices. So what I would do is I would start by putting money in the hands of veterans so that they didn't have to use the VA hospital system. I would also put money in the hands of Medicare and Medicaid patients. So if veterans and Medicare and Medicaid patients, if those three groups all had money to go out and shop for the lowest prices, that would get the ball rolling.
Let's talk about COVID-19. Whoever the next president is going to have to deal with that global pandemic. How would you deal with it?
Well, can I just mention quickly, the two things Donald Trump did wrong was, first of all, he didn't get rid of the FDA obstacles to allow testing in. If we had been tested, we would have known who needed to stay home and who could have gone out. In fact, South Korea confirmed their first case within a day of ours, and they were able to quickly contain the spread without a shutdown. And that's why when I say, the reason I'm running for government, that government usually hurts the very people they're trying to help. COVID-19 and the FDA, a perfect example. The CDC, and thanks to the CDC and the FDA, we were only allowed to use 2 different testing kits, even though there were dozens available. So thanks to that, we lost tens of millions of jobs. And also, Trump stood on stage with Dr. Fauci and said, you don't need to get tested if you don't have symptoms. And even at the time, they knew that the majority of the people with the virus didn't have symptoms. That's the time that you need to get tested, is when you don't have symptoms, because you could be spreading it without even knowing it. So what we need to do is we need to stop this, again, the special interests handing out money to large corporations. And I know a lot of people are excited to get a $1,200 eventually. The problem is, not only are you getting your $1,200 check, but there's money going to corporations, and let people keep their own money. Personally, I would rather spend my money at these mom and pop stores in my local town than these big corporations, because a lot of these big corporations were allowed to stay open, and they're racking up huge profits. Meanwhile, the mom and pop stores were forced to stay closed. So I want to spend my money at these people who were forced to stay closed. I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to the big corporations that already had the advantage.
Let's talk about the very kind of the crux of being a third party candidate. And a lot of people view the Libertarian candidate in every election cycle. We saw it 4 years ago. 3% of the vote went to the Libertarian candidate. That's no small number. Many call that playing spoiler. What would you say to folks who call a third party candidate a spoiler?
It's impossible for me to be a spoiler if the parties are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, what I tell Trump voters is I understand why you voted for Trump. He came in as an outsider. He said, I'm a businessman. I know how to balance the budget and cut spending. I'll cut the deficit, cut debt. He's done none of those things. If he had done those things, if he had followed through on promise, then people wouldn't be tempted to vote for me because he would still be the outsider, make things happen. And the Democratic Party, I think it's just egregious. And, I'm a little older. I grew up in the 60s. I remember when the Democratic Party was the party of anti-war. They were the party of peace, of free speech, of individual rights. And they can't say that anymore. The Democratic machine kept, they literally muzzled Tulsi Gabbard, kept her off the stage. The only veteran, kept her off the stage. The only anti-war message. And, shame on the Democratic Party. If the Democratic Party acted like Democrats instead of like war hawks, and might I include, since Biden is saying he's following in the footsteps of Obama, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton both in 2012 said that gay marriage should be illegal. That's never been the support of individuals that the Democratic Party has shown. So what I say is if the Democrats acted like Democrats, then I couldn't be a spoiler.
Finally, I'm just going to give you about 10 to 15 seconds here. Try to sway a voter. Somebody's undecided. They're sitting on the fence. Introduce yourself to them. Pitch to them.
I would say if you're in a solidly red state or solidly blue state and you don't like what you're getting, vote for me to definitely send a message. And also about 75% of my volunteers are from outside the party because they're sick of the old system. And I say that you know best what's best for you. You should be able to make your own decisions, spend your own money. So a vote for me isn't a vote for me. It's actually a vote for you.
Jo Jorgensen, thank you so much for your time. And of course, good luck on Election Day.
Thank you. I appreciate it.